When everything is going really well, how do you show up as a leader? What about those times when your back is up against the wall? How do you show up as a leader? There is really different ways that leaders do show up in all sorts of different scenarios, and it can be quite confusing for people. So the question here is, what leader shows up? And when you are working in different scenarios, let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Hey there, listeners. Welcome to the Ask Denis Freestyle episode. It's always awesome to have you here with me. And, on these freestyle episodes, this is where I'm actually asked a question by our listeners, or I share my insights, experiences, and thoughts in working with many leaders around the globe. So we have an interesting topic this week, and that is, what leader shows up? And I've been talking about this quite a bit of late with various leaders. And you see, people, teams sometimes are asking this question. Now, you may be someone who's listening to this right now who has experienced this with previous leaders that you have reported into or are currently reporting into. So how have leaders coped with the different way that they show up? Now, I'm asking you this as listeners. How have you coped? But also, how has the leader coped as well? So it's from two angles that I'm actually asking this question. Today, I want to really talk about the angle of the leader itself. So if you're somebody who shows up differently depending on what's going on for you, this episode's for you. It is also for people who experience that as well, who are reporting into a leader, because you may understand a little bit more about where they might be coming from. So there's all sorts of different actual scenarios where this happens. And different sort of assessments, like personality assessments, 360-degree assessments, leadership assessments. Sometimes they call this as derailers or triggers or something that's really going to cause someone to not be themselves, or are they really revealing the real self? Because you see, for a lot of them, they're actually hiding behind masks and they're actually hiding behind things, which is really interesting to see, but it's not actually the real, authentic or transparent leader that is showing up. So today I want to discuss from the perspective of, how do leaders, where they have something happen, it changes their mood. So what can we do to help you be a leader that shows up consistently is what we want to look at as well. If you think about Disneyland, here's an example. I don't know if you know about this, but what we've been told is that the crew at Disneyland have an understanding, is the way I'll put it. You can imagine mum and dads and families have saved many years possibly, or they've saved up to go to the most happiest place on the earth, known as Disneyland. Imagine if they're walking along the path and someone who's working there as a crew member has had a bad morning, a bad day, and then your child or you ask something very simple, but they turn around and snap at you. That whole experience around going to Disneyland, to the happiest place in the world, changes pretty quickly. Now, what happened with that person and why did they lose it? There's all sorts of things going on for them possibly. But the understanding that they have at Disneyland is if you arrive at work and you're not in the right attitude, in the right way of showing up, then go home. Why? Because they can't afford to have people not be in the happiest place in the world. And that's what's really important. So there's very few things that I want to talk to you about you showing up as consistently, but also as a solid leader. One of them is understand what are your triggers, those derailers and other things that we call them, because they may cause you to lose control when you're under pressure. Some people may feel like they're out of control. Now, how do you take back that control? In other words, how do you take over again? Sometimes you might be speaking inappropriately to others, so how do you speak appropriately with them? So what causes you to be like this? In other words, what is your triggers? I think we need to take some time out to stop and step back and reflect and review what causes this kind of situation to happen. Work through what you need to do to recognize the trigger and what you need to do to stop it, and also alter the path. The second thing that I would say here is about you being really, really well prepared. Now, there's two prongs to this. It's about you being prepared as a leader. I find that too many leaders fall into a leadership role by mistake. They haven't been developed. They don't have the experience of working with teams, and they haven't had to lead anyone else, let alone themselves. And so it's about being really well prepared and starting to develop and grow yourself as a leader going forward. But for those that are out of control, tend to be those who don't prepare very well at all. So that's the second part that I really want to talk about here, and that is that if you're not preparing well, then you can become overwhelmed or be overwhelmed, and then you start to lose things again in the sense of you are not showing up very well as a leader. The best thing to do to get prepared and take control back is that I know that most people that I work with say that they experience a major shift in preparing. That gives them a lot of confidence, and they come across as being more confident, and they are better equipped, and they can handle things better. If you can get very clear on the leader or person you are, if you step back and think about the type of leader that you want to be known as, work out what your values are. Now, for some of you, you may already have those very clear. Excellent. Well done. But for some of you, you may not even thought about it. The values are things that, we're talking about probably 5 at the most. You might want to go 6, 7, but you don't need to have 50,000 of them. But your values are important. And when you're clear on your values and what you stand for and the person you're wanting to be, then your team will be very clear as well. You'll feel way more confident, and so will they. So I want you to step back here and think about things. As a listener, what can you do or put in place to help you ensure that you will show up as a leader that you need to be? What will you need to put in place today to ensure that you turn up as a leader that your team needs you to be? You have a huge amount of resources around you. It's more about you acknowledging that something is happening for you and that you probably need to take control again and show up to be the best version of yourself. The thing here is, though, is you putting your hand up for some support or some help. You don't have to be everything to everybody. If you're feeling overwhelmed or you're unsure or you feel like you're not in control, put your hand up. And it's not a weakness, it is a strength. But if you can show that strength and step up to actually get yourself help, then that's really important. The biggest thing is acknowledging it. If you can acknowledge it, that's great. But it's not good enough for you to do nothing about it. So if you acknowledge and do something about it, then you can move forward and be a stronger leader. Now, sometimes some of us need some help to get that clarity or to help us work through the different sort of triggers that you may have. And if you're somebody like that who needs some support, someone to help you who's independent, brings no biases, is not your boss where your compensation and benefits are associated with. If you want to work with someone like myself as a coach who's going to help you, talk you through it, step you through it in confidence, then we can find a solution to help you. Get together with me or get in contact with me, and in the show notes we'll actually have my contact details around my email. But also if on social media on a private message, feel free to reach out to me. You see, a quick phone call, a quick message, or a quick chat on Zoom or Teams, whatever's best for you, can actually help you understand a little bit more about A, what you might need, and B, how I can help you. All right, listeners, well, as you go into the weekend, take time out to reflect about the week that's just been, but also think about what is the type of leader you want to be and how do you want to show up every single day? Do you want to show up every single day that is solid, confident, and someone who knows where they're going? Or are you going to try and wing it and just hope for the best? Hey, it's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.